The Betcast Picks of the Week.
Awesome. Producer Skip having a little bit of fun there. I don't know if we have Picks of the Week quite yet because this is on Monday, and I don't know if there's even a line out on Nebraska playing North Dakota because
there's not
FCS school. Eventually that will come out. But let's take a quick look at how we did last week. And if it wasn't for Skip and Rob going head-to-head on that Nevada-New Mexico State game, we could have gone 4-0 as Boomer. You were sweating it there a little bit.
No, never a doubt in my mind, Dave. Yeah.
Austin P, Western Kentucky, I think got up to 65 or so. Is
65.
That right?
I had a point and a half to spare.
So. Yeah, plenty. But I was not sweating my Illinois versus Wyoming game. That was a walk in the park. And Rob, you were sweating this one a little bit as Mexico State actually had a chance to definitely close on that game.
They did. They were winning, like, I think in the first half too. At one point I tuned in and I was like, oh, it figures. Because I was like, God, New Mexico State they can't be. There's no way they would beat Nevada. And you seem pretty I would say what's the word I want to use?
I was concerned about Nevada. Everyone
is concerned about it. You kind of had this, thought you put it out there, but I was just like, no, man, it's Nevada. Like New Mexico State, Nevada should be able to pull this out, and they did.
They did.
They had a little bit worried there.
They've got a season win total, I think, of 4 or 4.5, and I mean that was a very trendy pick nationally to take the under on that, because they obviously lost their head coach to Colorado State and a bunch of their players, and is a bit of a mess. But hey, you got this one at least. We'll see what they look like going forward. But other games that I had some success with last week, even though it wasn't my best bets, I mentioned on the show Vanderbilt should beat Hawaii. I took that game at 6.5. I think it closed at 9.5, and they won 63-10. So that was an easy win. And obviously I suggested to take the over on the Nebraska game. A lot of people, including Vegas Jer, thought completely different on that, but I landed that, unfortunately. Any others out there, Boomer or Rob, that you played last week that you were particularly proud of?
Honestly, I didn't have time to really put anything down on Saturday because, like I said, I had a work event that I was.
Rob, this is a show for degenerate gamblers. You're not randomly betting against the Florida A&M Rattlers versus North Carolina. What are you doing on this show?
Well, that's a good. I often ask myself that question too, Dave. I do. So, I apologize. I mean, I had some work obligations.
More degenerate bets later on as the season warms up a little bit.
Week zeros,
and it was week 0, so give me a break on that too.
True,
I mean, there was only one game I cared about last week, and after that one was over, I just stopped caring about any more college football for the rest of the day for the most part.
Well,
so
that's too bad because I enjoyed a fair amount of college football. Before we start talking about the week 1 matchups, which should be more interesting, I want to remind everyone again about the Yahoo Fantasy College Football Pick'em game we have going on. Look for Go Big Redcast Bets, group ID 5209, and hit the Betcast password. And I think I just looked, there's about 25 folks, probably several of you that are listening are already on, but if you haven't already joined and you're listening, go for it. It should be a great season. And the winner, hopefully, if they want to, could be on a fan forum sometime in the future as a reward for taking home the grand prize. That's unless one of the Redcasters actually takes home first, and then we I don't know what we get to do.
We'll just do like a random draw for who gets to come on, and they can talk to Honky because that it would be a punishment if they had to talk to me. So
last place has to talk to Rob on a show.
Yeah, last place has to do a lunch cast with me, and I get to ask all the questions.
So yeah, that'd be hilarious.
That's motivation for me not to finish last. That's for certain. That'd just be torture. I'm gonna have nightmares.
Thank you. I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
I could come. It would give me an excuse to come down to Denver. We could play golf, and we could just do StreamYard from the golf cart.
That'd be cool. We do have some new equipment that we're going to use on our big media day when we're at the Georgia Southern game, and we could potentially do a golf course Redcast. But
I could
we'll
be
figure
like,
that
Dave,
out.
you don't want to use your 5-iron here. You definitely could use a different one because that's definitely happened before.
All right, well, let's start talking about some games here. And, we don't have any graphics up unless, Boomer, you want to bring anything up. But I think as we go forward, we'll try to get a little more technology here on the YouTube screen so we can see some of the games. We're not picking any games here. We're just kind of highlight maybe a few that we might be interested in. And there's a lot of games all week. It's Labor Day weekend, right? So we start on Thursday night. Got games on Friday, Saturday. I think there's even one on Sunday, and then on Monday night, right? I mean, we just got college football for 4 or 5 straight days. One of the early ones that I've got my eye on from a betting perspective is Mark Whipple's old crew, Pittsburgh, is a 7.5-point favorites versus the Mountaineers of West Virginia at home. That's a revisit of the backyard brawl, right, Boomer?
That's correct, Dave.
Yeah, one of the great rivalries out there. I don't know, do they play for a trophy of some sort with that, or they just like get a couch?
They just light a couch on fire.
Yeah. Well, I think it should be a fun game to watch. Pat Narduzzi might completely, have that Pitt offense running the ball about 80 times a game. That's what he likes to do. That's why him and Whip separated. So we'll see where that goes. But I kind of like Pitt to cover that. I think Pitt could be once again relatively good this year. And the other one I'm looking for on a Thursday night is the Big Ten matchup, Penn State versus Purdue. We got Penn State on the road in West Lafayette, 3.5-point favorites, total of 53.5. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Well,
yeah, that was kind of it. Oh, go ahead, Rob. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think this game will be interesting to me from the perspective that I really want to see who Purdue is as a team right now. And I know, again, it's only week 1, so it'll be different. But Penn State, you kind of always know who they are, right? Like, you know who they're going to be, what kind of offense they run, what kind of defense they usually always have. So it'll be interesting to me to see who Purdue is as a team this year and what their offense is going to look like, because they did lose quite a few guys, I think, on the offensive side. And, they're going to be an interesting team to me. A 3.5-point spread seems to say to me in a lot of ways, too, that people are a little bit higher on them than I expect, because there's people that are pretty high on Penn State this year, thinking that they're not going to be the 6-6 team that they were last year. Right. So it'd be interesting to me. I mean, this would be probably like not going to touch it with a big 10-foot pole, I think, pick of the week.
It's a hard one to read. I agree, Rob.
Yeah, it is. And especially because if that's the way Vegas is feeling about it, what do they know? Because usually a game like this, you see it going in, and even though it's a Big Ten game, you'll see like a 7.5, maybe, 8.5.
Naturally, or think Penn State would be a bigger favorite.
At least like a full touchdown lead, and they're not. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I'm going to watch that one closely.
Even the money line's not that confident. It's only plus 145 for Purdue right now. So,
yep. Other Friday night Big Ten game is that those New Mexico State Aggies already with the game underneath their belt is taking on Minnesota. Huge line there, Minnesota 36.5. That's a lot for Minnesota.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I was keeping an eye on. That's an awful lot of points for a Gophers team that doesn't tend to go crazy and completely blow teams out. I'll be interested to see what they do. New Mexico State has a game under their belt. Minnesota's got that offensive coordinator coming back. I can't remember his name. The guy that was there a couple of years ago. And
Soraka.
Soraka. And you've got Tanner Morgan, I think his 9th year veteran there. And Mo Ibrahim is back.
He's on his second contract, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He got a good extension last year. So that's just a lot of points for the Gophers. I'd be hard pressed on that one. I'm going to give that one some thought later on this week too. So that it just seems like a lot. So for a team that doesn't tend to score a lot because they don't want to necessarily. So.
Yep, that's right. Other Big Ten games, they're sprinkled out throughout the whole weekend here. Michigan State's on Friday night versus Western Michigan, favored by 22. But the one that's more interesting is an actual Big Ten matchup, and Illinois.
Yes.
With a 1-0 record, it's playing on a Friday night, so only 6 days between games. They're going to have 2 games underneath their belt before the games that kick off on Saturday. Some teams will even have played a game. They could be 2-0, and they're in Bloomington to take on Indiana. A lot of people are very down in Indiana, but we'll see it. And this is where it's intriguing to me. Hoosiers are favored by 3.
I don't get that line. I'd jump on Illinois right now if you were betting on that. I don't know what they're saying that I'm not, but Illinois looks pretty confident.
Is it the lack of rest?
I think it's. I mean, I lie a little bit. I did watch some of that game. I was driving somewhere and I was in the car for about an hour and a half, and I had the Illinois
watching the game
while driving.
Well, no, I was listening. I'm sorry, I was listening to the game. It was. I was streaming it on my phone, whatever you want to say. But I was driving and I was listening to the game on my phone. And I think at one point, I heard a stat that Wyoming only had like 6 completions for 41 yards or some crazy stat like that.
Yeah, they could not pass.
Okay, and so Wyoming Illinois game, that was more like a scrimmage for Illinois in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering how many of their backups were in during that game. Apparently their secondary was pretty locked down in the second half, obviously with only 41 yards passing. And so I think that for a lot of people, the reason why the spread is what it is because people saw Illinois, but they played Wyoming. Indiana may not be that good, but people still aren't that high on Illinois, and Indiana's the home team. I mean, that could be the only reason why I think people are looking at it like that, because it wasn't really much of a challenge for Illinois to play a team like Wyoming. Wyoming is terrible. They were terrible.
Yeah. So I don't know. We're gonna find out. I might avoid that one again, but to Boomer's point, I mean, just looking at it, it's kind of like the number stinks a little bit because it doesn't make any sense. I think Illinois should win that game. Other Big Ten games of note: Colorado State goes to the Big House on Saturday morning. 30.5 point spread there for Michigan.
Is Michigan like playing a different quarterback every quarter? Is that what they've decided to do, or something?
So.
This time?
Biblical terms there, Boomer, I believe is what Harbaugh said. Iowa has their classic FCS opponent they probably shouldn't play in South Dakota State. Jackrabbits are pretty darn good usually. I don't know. Rutgers is at Boston College.
They're actually, and Boston College is favored in that one too. So
Rutgers isn't very good.
No, they are not.
Probably going to be worse than last year, is what I've heard. Buffalo goes to Maryland. A lot of people are very high in Maryland's talent, so we'll see there. Other games of the week: Oregon is in a neutral site matchup versus Georgia.
In Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, neutral site
very
in Atlanta.
Neutral. Neutral in Atlanta. Good job, everybody.
I think I saw a stat. I can't remember it, but like SEC teams, week 1 and neutral site games cover the majority of the time, even if it's a big number. So even though that's 3 versus 11, boy, you might consider.
Was it 21.5 point spread? Is that what that game was?
17 right now.
17,
yeah, that's what I had last.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I actually have one that I'm interested in too, Dave. Though
fire away, Rob.
I was going to say God, where'd it go? All of a sudden, the Cincinnati Arkansas game.
Oh, I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, it's interesting because Cincinnati's 23rd, right? Arkansas is 19. Arkansas is favored by 6 because they're at home, but Cincinnati was a playoff team last year, and I'm not sure exactly what. And they did lose a lot, but they're still ranked 23rd. They have a really good coach over there, and so that'll be an interesting matchup. I think I'll probably watch that one on Saturday afternoon, like while the girls.
It's the same time the Nebraska game's on, Rob.
Well, I can still have it on my phone. I do have more than one TV in the house, Dave.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you understood that.
There's a thing called technology, and I've got a buddy who's an Arkansas fan, and I really want them to lose. So
all right.
That would help.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other two that I was kind of interested in, just the lines I'm looking at, you got North Carolina and App State. It's basically basically a push. Yeah. I mean,
so
UNC's not getting a whole lot of respect.
Carolina was favored earlier in the year. If you would have got that game in June or so, you could have got probably like +3 for App State, and it slid all the way to App State being a 1-point favorite now. So that's how much money's poured in on the Mountaineers.
It's kind of a crazy one. So I was going to keep an eye on that. And I don't know what I'd do with it, but Alabama opening with Utah State. I mean, Utah State's got a game under their belt. They're not a bad team. And right now you can get it -41.5 for Alabama.
Yep.
Take Alabama to cover in the first half. Is that what it is?
I think that might be one of those you get that sneaky late game. Utah State gets a couple of late scores to cut it to, 38-point win or something like that for Alabama when they've got third stringers in or something like that. So it's just a lot of points. Yeah.
would look at Alabama in the first half. That's always a
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's
check the halves on that one, folks.
Ride till I die.
25
Ride till I
range.
die, Dave. I'm taking them. Them and
Yep.
Kansas losing. You know. I mean,
Well, the other big game out there that we should just mention is a 2 versus 5 matchup. This is Ohio State hosting Notre Dame. It's an evening game there on ABC. Ohio State favored by 17.5, total at 58.5. 2 versus 5, 17.5 point spread. That is.
Is that a Big Ten East game yet, Dave, or not quite yet?
That could be the same pod before you know it.
Well, there's a speaking of pods too. There's a shout out to some of our friends on Twitter. They're the Four Horsemen podcast, who basically said that why do you have Notre Dame beating Ohio State, and why are you wrong? Or why do you have, and why would you, and if you don't, then why are you wrong, or something like that. And I mean, they're pretty high on themselves. I don't think Notre Dame is Ohio State good. I don't know if 17.5 is a number that I would play. I'd probably take Notre Dame to cover that. I do think they're better than a 17.5 loss to Ohio State. But I mean, it's 2 versus 5, right? I mean, Notre Dame's never overranked.
I would avoid that. I have no interest in betting that game. Maybe I'll look at the over or something like that.
I saw an interesting stat to where, like, for preseason rankings, Notre Dame, people are saying, "Oh, Notre Dame's always overranked." The last 10 years or something like that, every time Notre Dame is ranked, say 10 or 15, they always end up ranked higher at the end of the season. Yeah. Well, they're ranked 5 now, so there's only one place to go, and that's the playoffs. So
relatively blown out in this game, and then go win 11 games and still potentially make the playoff, right?
See, just like Nebraska.
You're going to lose game 1 with them, right?
So Notre Dame, Nebraska, Redcast Rob is calling it now in the title game. So there we go.
Oh, God, don't do that to me, please. Please don't do that to me.
All right, guys, any other games you want to highlight before we get out of here?
Who does Kansas play?
No, I think we'll wait and kind of Thursday or so we'll put our picks on Twitter and, kind of cement things once we hear a little more from all the teams and any injuries or any changes. So
yeah, I'm gonna need till Thursday afternoon at this point to pick a team. But who is Kansas playing? I got
Tennessee Tech.
Oh God, Tennessee Tech by 12. I'm just kidding.
That's Rob's gut talking.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh God, if that
for entertainment
happens,
purposes only, loyal listeners.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that happens, I'm buying a lottery ticket.
All right, guys, let's get out of here with some parting shots. Boomer, what do you got for me?
Oh, I don't have anything too dramatic today. It's week 0. Sad to say we're should be somewhat used to this, and we've had our comments before. If you can't say anything nice about players, for the love of God, just stay off of Twitter. Nobody needs to be tweeting at them or at their family members or at recruits, anything like that, folks. At the end of the day, it's a game. Just enjoy what you can. Losing sucks, but it is what it is. So just, stay off of Twitter if you can't say anything nice. So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Rob, what do you got?
Well, I only had one thing that I was going to cover, but I can't remember what it was. So we'll just call it like a 1-point loss.
Okay. I don't know what that exactly means, but I'll take it as our final parting shot of the night. For now, let's call that a Go Big Redcast.
Beat North Dakota.
A Huda Media Production.